Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 283, Trees a Crowd. The episode begins with Ash and the gang still walking through Petalburg Woods when they suddenly come to a fork in the road and realize that they were lost as they didn't know which way to go. However, this argument soon stops as Max realizes that this fork in the road was one that they had encountered previously, meaning that they had officially gotten lost in the woods and had begun doing circles. Max instantly blamed May for this, stating that they were following May since she spotted cute flowers in the path and just said, "Oh, we have to follow these flowers. It'll obviously lead us out of the woods." But May simply rebutted that it wasn't her fault because Max was the one with the Pokénav, which should have acted as a map. So if Max realized that they weren't going the right way, then he should have said something. But Max simply said that because of the density of the Petalburg forest, his Pokénav was now out of service, so he couldn't rely on it. So he was relying solely on May. The argument then escalated as May and Max both continued to blame each other, but thankfully, Brock physically separated May and Max, stopping the argument, telling them that arguing won't get them anywhere. Since the more they argued, the slower it would take them to simply find the right path and get to Rustboro City. Ash tried to stop the argument between May and Max as well by telling them that he, Brock, and Misty, during their travels in Kanto and Johto, got lost in the woods many goddamn times, and they tried their best not to complain about it, and sure enough, they were able to eventually find their destination, so he figured that they would be able to do the same as well. So, with that, Ash and the gang tried to find their way out of the woods, although May and Max were still very angry at each other and refused to talk to each other, still blaming one another. And were beginning to get so angry that they were about to take out their anger on Ash and Brock when suddenly Ash spotted something moving in the trees, and notices that there was likely more than one thing in the trees as he hears a lot of rustling. He then decides that it was probably a Pokemon of some kind in the trees, so he points his Pokedex at the tree to see what the Pokemon was, and reveals to him that it was none other than a Trico, which May and Max recognized as one from Professor Birch's lab. Several more Trico then reveal themselves running across the trees, and Ash gets excited as he recognized the Trico as well from Professor Birch's lab, and remarked how that was the starter that he would have chosen if he was given an option. So he decided that now he didn't have to get one from Professor Birch, he could just get one for himself as he threw a Pokeball to catch one. Unfortunately, the Trico Ash was aiming for simply deflected the Pokeball with his tail, much to Ash's dismay, as May reminded Ash what he had told her, being that you had to weaken a Pokemon before you caught it, and said how she was confused why Ash wasn't taking his own advice. Ash knew that he was being stupid and claimed that he just got too overly excited, and promised that he wouldn't give up and would actually fight the Trico with his Pikachu this time, but he then stopped himself as Brock informed him that the Trico was running away, so Ash instead gave up on fighting the Trico and simply ran after it, as the Trico had jumped down from the trees and was running on the ground now. May tried to remind Ash that he should try and stop the Trico in its tracks by attacking it, but Ash was already gone, impulsively running after the Trico, leading May, Max, and Brock to chase after him, although Max was going slow, leaving May to make fun of Max for this, which made Max angry, since May was always the one who was lagging behind, so she had no right to talk. Anyways, Ash chased after not only the Trico he wanted to catch, but all the other Trico, as they were of course running together, and he notices a remarkably huge, mysterious tree up ahead, but since he was so focused on this tree, he wasn't watching where he was going, and this causes him to trip over a root in the forest, and therefore he goes tumbling down a hill. He almost passed out due to the panic, but he didn't, and regained his focus as he went to go climb back up the hill, only to look behind him before he went, and realized that he had landed right in front of the huge tree that he had spotted. And now that he was able to get a closer look at the tree and analyze it fully, he looked up to see that it was twice as tall as all the other trees in the forest, commenting that it almost looked magical. Ash was so focused on this aspect of the tree, though, that Pikachu had to point out to him that despite the tree being tall, it had no leaves, and appeared to be dead. Just then, though, as Ash stood up to get an even better look at the tree, a sharp twig was thrown at Ash, causing him to quickly dodge it before he got hit in the face. Ash notices that the twig had come from the Trico, who was sitting on a branch on the tree and fired the twig from its mouth. Ash came to the conclusion that the Trico must have been angry at Ash for following it, but Ash still decided to challenge the Trico, desperate to capture it. Trico accepted, as it wanted to fight Ash as well, as it had another twig prepped in its hand, ready to go. So, Trico first jumped up onto higher branches on the tree to make sure that Pikachu or Ash couldn't do any damage to it, as it then fired its new twig directly at Pikachu, putting it in its mouth to do so. However, Pikachu was able to dodge this, jumping away and deflecting the twig with his tail, just as Trico had deflected Ash's Pokeball with its tail. This just made Trico even more angry, as it jumped down from the tree and whacked Pikachu with its tail, knocking it into the tree. With Pikachu knocked down, Trico taunted him, urging Pikachu to get the fuck back up and fight back. This angered Pikachu, as he angrily jumped on Trico using Quick Attack. However, Trico was only grazed by the Quick Attack, as it managed to dodge it, and then use a pound on Pikachu, and whacked it with its tail again. Pikachu wanted to pummel Trico at this point, but it was too weak. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were spying on the battle between Trico and Pikachu, and were somewhat impressed with Trico's reflexes. They were so impressed by the Trico that Meowth declared that with Trico's pounding, it would be a great massager for Giovanni, and Giovanni would really like that, as Meowth, Jesse, and James then daydreamed, having a fantasy about Giovanni waking up in the morning next to Trico, as Trico instantly gave him a massage, and Team Rocket came to the conclusion that if they were able to get Trico to Giovanni, he would appreciate it so much that Giovanni would give them a promotion. They eventually snapped out of their fantasy due to Wobbuffet's interruption, and they were now motivated to capture the Trico. Meanwhile, back with Ash and Pikachu, with Pikachu down, all of the other Trico came down, wanting to challenge Ash and Pikachu as well, as they proceeded to surround Pikachu, seemingly wanting to punish Ash and Pikachu for following them to this tree. However, before any of these Trico could attack, they were then stopped by another Trico who appeared, who was seemingly the elder Trico, the leader and oldest one. This older Trico then approaches the one that Ash just battled, and tried to say something to him, but the Trico that Ash just battled yelled at the leader and pushed him backwards. This made the rest of the Trico actually mad at the one that Ash initially tried to catch, since they respected their leader. And these Trico were about to attack the one that Ash initially had his eye on, although the leader stops them, wanting to reason with the Trico as opposed to fighting it. So the leader then resumed talking to the Trico Ash had his eye on, and this time he wasn't pushed away, making Ash confused as he couldn't understand what the Trico were saying, and he wished that his friends, especially Brock, were with him, since he would likely know what the Trico were saying, since Brock was really good at that shit. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was watching this whole ordeal between the Trico go down, and Jessie was excited because she loved watching other people in Pokemon fight, and asked Meowth to translate what the Trico were talking about. Basically, the leader Trico was telling the Trico that Ash was interested in that all the Trico were supposed to leave this tree, even though it was their home, and they had been there since it was first planted, and they had guarded it since then. Adding that all of the other Trico had agreed to come and find a new tree with the leader, and that's why they had split up from the Trico that Ash was interested in before. And warned that if the Trico that Ash was interested in stayed behind at the tree, then it would be left alone, as everyone else in its pack was going to be finding a new place to go to. However, the Trico that Ash was interested in remained set on staying by this tree, stating that it was born at the tree, and wasn't going to abandon the place that it had stayed at its whole life. Reminding the leader that the tree had protected them from various storms and other shit, so it wasn't right to abandon it, especially because it wasn't quite dead yet. Sure, it was pretty much destroyed, but it hasn't entirely withered yet, so the Trico that Ash was interested in essentially wanted to stay there to ensure that it wouldn't fully die. As for Team Rocket's reaction to what the Trico Ash was interested in had said, James and Meowth were crying their eyes out, finding what the Trico that Ash was interested in had said was very touching. Although Jessie, on the other hand, thought that the Trico that Ash was interested in was just being stupid and stubborn, explaining her belief that life was full of change, and change was fucking necessary. So basically, she thought that the Trico shouldn't get hung up on staying by this one tree, as she then compared it to staying in one house your entire life, which she was opposed to, as she believed that you should just keep getting better and better houses, better and better clothing, better and better furniture, all this shit. Just then, Jessie's long-ass rant was cut off as she, James, and Meowth realized that all of the Trico were now leaving, and leaving the Trico that Ash was interested in alone, just as the leader had warned. And upon seeing how all of those Trico were leaving, Jessie suggested that they should capture all of the Trico while they didn't have a home to hide in, and James and Meowth agreed with this, fanning Jessie as thanks for this idea. Liking it, since Team Rocket had decided not to bother catching just one Trico, but multiple. As for Ash, he was so busy trying to figure out what the fuck the Trico were saying, he barely even noticed the Trico all leaving. Ash tried to call out for them before they were gone, since him and Pikachu were hoping to battle the Trico, but to no avail. To make things even worse for Ash, the Trico that he was interested in then left as well, though in a different direction than the other Trico. Ash goes to follow it, not wanting to lose it, as he motions Pikachu to come along, but Pikachu stays behind and motions to the tree, telling Ash to stay by it, leading Ash to come to the conclusion that Pikachu figured that Trico would eventually come back, since it clearly didn't want to abandon its home if it wasn't going with the other Trico. So Ash decided to stay at the tree and wait for Trico to return, confident that it would. Meanwhile, back with Brock, May, and Max, even though they were initially going after Ash, they had decided that they were hungry as fuck, so they were going to have some biscuits for lunch. Although May and Max were having trouble eating due to how worried they were for Ash since they couldn't find him, and they wondered what the fuck he was doing and where he was. Max thought that May wasn't that concerned though, still trying to pick a fight with her from earlier, claiming that if she was able to eat Brock's cookies that he made, then she clearly wasn't that concerned, leading May to rebuttal that she merely just wanted to eat so that she was charged up to find Ash and Pikachu later, and suggested that Max actually didn't care about finding Ash since he wasn't eating his cookies and therefore he wasn't getting charged up. Brock ended the argument by telling them that neither of them had to stress about Ash, since as long as he was with Pikachu, then he would be fine, telling them that Ash and Pikachu had gotten lost together many times throughout their travels in Kanto and Johto, so if they were able to recover after those losses, then getting lost together again, hopefully the same thing would happen. May and Max still wanted to go find Ash though, so Brock agreed that they could do this after they had their meal and a dessert to make sure that they were in fact well charged up, because if they weren't charged up, then they could go fucking insane while looking for Ash, and they could end up getting separated from each other and just create an even bigger mess. Meanwhile, Ash and Pikachu were now watching the sunset sitting on the tree as Ash realized that he had lost track of time waiting for Trico, and realized that he may have to actually go looking for Trico himself. However, he then saw a few Murkrow fly by, and this gave him an idea to send out Tailo to go on an aerial search for Trico, so that Ash could see if the Trico was coming back to the tree or not. Essentially, he wanted to see if it was worth it to stay there, and he also commanded his Tailo to try and locate May, Brock, and Max as well, so that it could inform them that he was okay, since he figured that his friends were probably worried about him. So, with that in mind, Ash orders Tailo to go and find his friends, as well as the Trico, and also lead his friends back to him, so that they weren't separated anymore. Ash's Tailo soon only had one goal, though, which was to find Ash's friends, as right after Tailo left, Trico showed up, carrying a leaf with water in it. Ash then watches intently as the Trico pours the water on the tree, and then places some dry leaves on the ground to keep the ground by the tree from drying up again, also watering the ground in the process. Essentially, he was just trying to make sure that the tree didn't fully wither up at this point. Trico then goes off to a nearby waterfall to get more water, as Ash continues to watch and wondered if it was too late to save the tree if it required that much water. The Trico then begins repeating the process of getting water into the leaf, watering the tree, and then placing leaves on the ground, with no sign of stopping due to its dedication to save its home. Ash and Pikachu soon stopped watching, as they felt bad just watching, especially since it was now dark and Trico had been doing this process all day. So they decided to help the Trico water the tree and place leaves, as they came up to the Trico while it was placing some leaves and startled it. As Trico then gets angry, because he was expecting Ash to challenge it to a battle like he did before, and Trico was fucking busy, right, doing his job at the tree, but much to Trico's surprise, he realized that Ash and Pikachu were just helping, as Ash explained this to him. Trico accepts the help, and Ash and Pikachu repeat the process of watering the tree and placing leaves multiple more times, and one time, when Ash was helping Trico get some water from the waterfall, carrying the leaf, they then got startled as they heard a rumbling sound and saw the trees shaking. Shortly after this, they soon see the cause being Team Rocket operating a bulldozer and using it to ram into all the trees, and therefore knocking the Trico, who were all sleeping in these trees, having seemingly found new homes, into a net connected to the bulldozer. Despite all of the Trico finding new homes, the Trico that Ash was interested in still cared for its pack and tried to do everything it could, such as pound attacks and spitting twigs, to stop the bulldozer and break open the net, but it couldn't before Team Rocket rammed the bulldozer into Ash, Pikachu, and Trico, sending them flying. Excited to be able to taunt Ash, Team Rocket made fun of him, Pikachu, and the Trico he was interested in for being knocked down, as they did their motto and quickly flew away in their Meowth balloon, which they had since outfitted with neon lights and a cage at the bottom for some extra show, and they also used this cage for a functional purpose, being to transfer the Trico from the bulldozer's net to this cage so they could fly off with the Trico. Ash and Pikachu quickly get back up, as the Trico Ash was interested in hooked onto a tree to stand guard, while Ash ordered his Pikachu to use Thunderbolt in an attempt to stop Team Rocket, but it was then revealed, as Team Rocket laughed, that the neon lights attached to their balloon also served as electricity blockers, so all of the electricity was absorbed, not harming Team Rocket in the slightest. This leads Ash to try another approach, being to send out his Tailo to try and pop the Meowth balloon, but as he goes to get Tailo's Pokeball, he remembers that it was empty since he had sent Tailo to go find his friends. With Ash distraught and distracted by this, Team Rocket took the opportunity as they were flying away to deploy a net to capture Pikachu, as well as the Trico Ash was interested in, deciding that they might as well capture them if Ash was distracted, but only Pikachu was captured in the net as the Trico was able to jump and dodge. However, the Trico was immensely angry, not just at Team Rocket for stealing all of its friends and family, but also mad that it tried to capture it and his new friend Pikachu as well. Also mad at the fact that Pikachu had failed to avoid capture, and his net was now dragged up and put inside the cage with the rest of the Trico. So he proceeded to attack the Meowth balloon by shooting his twig from his mouth at it, but it didn't do anything to the balloon, as the twig wasn't sharp enough. Surprising Trico, as he thought that so long as he was high enough after climbing up the nearby tree, he would have been able to pierce the balloon. Team Rocket simply laughed at Trico's failure, noticing him, as James sent out his new Cacnea to fight Trico with a pin missile, although Trico was able to dodge this by leaping from the tree and into the balloon instead, as Ash used his Pokedex on Cacnea, wondering who it was, as he had never seen a Cacnea before, and he came to the conclusion that Team Rocket probably stole the Cacnea, since he had never seen them get many new Pokemon before. The last new Pokemon they got was fucking Wobbuffet, and that was like pretty early on in Johto, so yeah, I think that was a pretty reasonable conclusion, but nope, Cacnea had willingly joined James. Anyways, with Trico now up in the balloon, it wasted no time as it began attacking Team Rocket, pounding James and tail-whipping Jessie. Jessie tried to fight back against the Trico by hitting it, but she accidentally stepped back, not wanting Trico to mess with her hair as it was trying to do, and this caused her to accidentally press a button inside the Meowth balloon, which opened up the cage. So the Trico were now free to go. But before they do, they make sure to help Pikachu out of the net it was in, so it could escape as well. The Trico that Ash was interested in then continued to attack Team Rocket, knocking them down onto the floor of the Meowth balloon basket, although Cacnea had escaped onto the actual balloon part of the Meowth balloon. So Trico quickly leaped up to it and taunted Cacnea like, "Oh, you're the only one left, bitch. You really think you can defeat me?" And this made Cacnea angry, just as Trico wanted, as Cacnea used Pin Missile, and Trico was able to dodge, meaning that the Pin Missile actually ended up popping the balloon, meaning that Team Rocket began to blast off as the balloon began to fall to the ground. However, before this happened, all of the other Trico escaped with Pikachu landing on a nearby tree, and Team Rocket fully blasted off with their balloon destroyed. The leader Trico then thanked the Trico that Ash was interested in for its help, and the Trico that Ash was interested in accepted the thanks, as well as the leader's apology, as it apologized for leaving the Trico behind. The Trico leader and the Trico that Ash was interested in then shake tails as a sign of mutual respect for each other, signifying that the Trico that Ash was interested in was now allowed back into the group, although the Trico that Ash was interested in still maintained his position that he wanted to stay at the tree and protect it. The leader, wanting to respect the Trico that Ash was interested in's wishes, decided to help that Trico look after the tree now, making Ash happy. However, just then, the tree then suddenly split in two, leading the group of Trico to rush to both sides of the tree to try and push it back together to save it. They weren't strong enough to push the tree entirely back, though, so Ash decided to search for a rope in his backpack in hopes that he could lasso the two ends of the tree together. However, before he could throw the rope, everyone stops in their tracks as they get distracted by the sun coming up and illuminating the tree, causing it to glow beautifully. Trico then somehow gets a vision that he was also somehow able to pass on to Ash somewhat uncontrollably, indicating that this vision must have been meant to go to the both of them, although it simply just started in Trico. This vision involved the birth of the huge tree, as it started out as a seed, then grew up, bloomed flowers, which then left more seeds, which fell to the ground and ended up killing the flowers, but building a whole bunch more trees that formed the entire forest. Essentially, this huge-ass tree was responsible for the entire forest. However, the vision then continues all the way to the present day, where now the tree was split in two, making Ash and Trico realize that it was in fact just a vision, and the tree was still ruined. Things then get worse, since Ash hadn't been able to throw the rope to try and tie the two halves together, so the two halves split even more and fell to the ground, meaning that the tree was now destroyed permanently. However, it wasn't all bad, as the tree managed to produce one last seed, and the force from the two halves of the tree falling over caused this last seed to roll over by Trico's feet. Specifically, the Trico that Ash was interested in. Ash sees this as Trico picks up the seed, and comes to the conclusion that the tree must have given the Trico a gift of this seed as thanks for Trico trying its best to save it when everyone else gave up on it, and now it wanted the Trico to continue the tree's legacy by planting one last new tree that would hopefully grow to be as big as that tree was back in its prime. Ash then bends down to the Trico and tells it that it should be proud of what it tried to accomplish, and he thinks that Trico didn't like Ash being nice to it and saying this kind thing, as Trico then tackles Ash, knocking him to the ground, and knocking Pikachu off his shoulder as well. However, Ash soon realizes that Trico tackling him and Pikachu was actually its way of saying thank you, since it knew that Ash had wanted to battle it and challenge it, and he was now granting Ash that option, although he was just going for the first attack. So, with that, Ash and Pikachu decided to challenge Trico, as Brock, May, and Max had found Taylor found them rather, and the four of them had arrived just as the battle began to watch. The battle then started as Pikachu used Thunderbolt, although Trico was able to dodge. Pikachu tried to repeat Thunderbolt several times, but eventually, even though Trico was able to dodge all these Thunderbolts, one Thunderbolt was able to hit Trico, although it didn't end up doing much damage to Trico, surprising Ash and May, although Max reminded them that grass types were resistant towards electric attacks. Ash didn't panic though, as he knew that Pikachu could simply use a non-electric attack, and realized that since Trico was so fast, being able to dodge, then a quick attack would be the perfect move, since that was a fast move in general. So he had Pikachu use quick attack, but unfortunately, Trico was still able to dodge this, proving that it was faster. Even after Trico's performance though, Max still maintained that Pikachu was probably faster, agreeing with Ash's initial assumption after having seen Ash's previous battles in Hoenn. However, Ash admitted that he now wasn't so sure, especially after Trico dodged another one of Pikachu's attacks, being a tackle. Ash then realized that Trico was now in the air though, due to dodging the quick attack and tackle, so this left it unable to attack, so Pikachu struck with another Thunderbolt, and this was actually able to knock out the Trico, sending it plummeting down to the ground. The other Trico were shocked, as was Max, who questioned how an electric attack was able to feint the grass type, leading Brock to explain that usually electric attacks didn't work well against grass types because the grass Pokemon could diffuse the electricity into the ground, since they were essentially able to transfer the electricity into the ground because of their connection with it, because of them being grass types. But since Trico was in the air, it couldn't connect to the ground as well, so it couldn't transfer the electricity into the ground, so it took full effect. Just then, Pikachu lands on the ground, almost getting injured from falling from the high distance, although it saves itself by landing on its tail. And now, with the Trico down, Ash threw a Pokeball to catch it, and although it took a few shakes, as he, Brock, May, Max, and all the other Trico watched intently, Trico was caught, leading Ash to celebrate, going to do his victory pose, happy with his second Hoenn capture, and he was even a starter Pokemon. After waiting a few minutes, Ash hoped that due to being in the Pokeball, Trico would have healed up, so he sent out Trico soon, and sure enough, he saw that the Pokeball had healed it, and it was alright, and he then asked Trico if it really wanted to join his team, which Trico confirmed, because otherwise it wouldn't have went in the Pokeball, happy to join the team. Before Ash and the gang could continue on their journey, now that Ash had caught the Trico, Ash's Trico made sure to say goodbye to the rest of its pack, including the leader, and the leader gave Ash's Trico a parting gift, a second seed that had come from the destroyed tree. Yes, that's right, it actually sent out 2 seeds. That's convenient. Immediately after receiving the seed, Ash's Trico digs a spot and puts the seed inside, planting it, hoping that it would grow into a tree just as big as its old home. Trico then also plants the seed that it had personally received from the tree. With that, Ash and the gang walk along with Trico, continuing their journey to Rustboro City as they say goodbye to Ash's Trico's old pack, as they promise to tend to the 2 seeds and help them grow. We then see, sometime later, that both of the seeds have now sprouted into trees of their own. They weren't nearly as big yet, they were just little baby trees, but they would grow soon enough, thanks to the Trico's care.